a pink cloud and purple air on a platform. It seems to be connected to the ground.
Okay.
So it's like it's a house
Mm. And
in the clouds.
mm, what does this house look like? Can you describe it for me?
The house has a white, well, it's a platform with a white um, disc.
Mm.
There's there's designs along the disc. It's a large disc, and the house it's, it's like a dome on the disc.
Mm.
The disc is suspended to the ground. It's connected to the ground, but
Mm.
it's like floating up there.
Mm.
Yeah,
And what else do you notice in this scene?
it's me. I'm wearing robe, like
Mm.
silk robes. It's not silk, but it's like shiny
Mm.
and very comfortable.
Mm.
And so it's all clouds,
Mm.
and then it's like it's actually a water planet.
Mm.
Um, so this is somehow connected to the ground on an
Mm.
island, or it's just floating there actually. I don't think it's connected. Yeah, it's
So,
floating.
so does the body feel masculine or feminine?
It's masculine.
Mm. Does it feel young or old?
It feels about middle-aged.
Mm. Does the
It feels good.
mm, does the body feel healthy?
Yeah, yeah, very healthy.
Mm. So do you live in this house?
Yeah, yeah, this is my house. It literally floats there in the clouds.
Mm. Do you have anyone living with you?
Yeah, well, she's not here. I have a wife.
Mm.
I guess mm, I, mm, not, yes, I would call it spouse. Different though. It's like it's like a soulmate.
Mm. And so your relationship is different in that sense.
Yeah, we have, no, we want a kid though. We
Mm.
don't have a kid, but we
Mm.
want one.
Mm. So, what do you do with your life? What is your life like in this place?
Well, it's a large house, like goes up there, goes up like many stories,
Mm.
large, and it floats about. And it's pink. I mean, it's like purple, pink, gold colors,
Mm.
and it has very circular stuff. It's all circular. Everything in the house is circular too, or curved edges,
Mm.
and this kind of weird material that is buoyant
mm,
and sturdy,
mm,
and a lot of things are made of this material. It's almost like metal, but plastic. It's
mm.
weird.
So, do you have a village or a city nearby?
Yeah, yeah. So there's a shuttle that goes to a city.
Mm,
So it's like a floating um, shuttle. Um, very strange. And that takes you to a large floating city
mm,
nearby.
mm,
It's all connected with these bridges
mm,
and floating discs, and then there's buildings. That's
mm,
just really cool. It's, it's very nice, and there's clouds above us too, so it's kind of like we're on the lower clouds,
mm.
pink, and it's all clouds.
So, does everyone live in the clouds?
Yeah, yeah. It's a water planet, so the people live on the clouds.
Mm,
It seems to be it's very pink and purple and blue, and people all have very nice robes,
mm,
mostly in some sort of tunic kind of clothes, and they're walking around, and they all sparkle a little
mm.
bit. They all look radiant,
Oh, nice. That sounds
and
really lovely.
yeah, yeah, it's a whole society. It's,
Mm. So, what else is happening in this city?
well, let's see. There is a toward the center. There's a council chamber, and it's also very gold and pink,
Mm,
and it's like it's hard to describe it. Oh, it's very detailed.
mm.
I'm going to this council chamber to discuss
Okay.
the events. That's like my job.
Okay. So, is that your job to discuss things on the council?
Yeah, there's like 30 of us,
Mm,
so it's like many people kind of sitting in this circle room,
mm,
and then we're what's weird. We're all like holding hands and like
mm,
I don't know, or like not holding hands, but it's telepathic. I guess that's why I feel like we're holding hands. We're communicating in a cohesive sense
mm,
of like all people like become one thing and sort of talk that way.
mm. So, what will you discuss today?
Hmm. So I'm getting the sense that we're established here as a colony. So here there are other like from another planet people.
Mm,
Like they're also they look similar to us,
mm.
but they've come to discuss things as well
Okay.
as an ongoing conversation about our what would I call this? Um, territory in
Mm,
space.
Mm.
And so we are looking at our little dots and we are discussing, okay, so we could see the hmm, reptile people, their little empire.
Mm.
They're they're and they're stepping on our turf. Well,
Oh.
they're not. They're stepping on a planet which we have a initiative in. So we're discussing whether or not they're stepping on our turf,
Mm. Okay.
and if we should stop them or just let them go for now.
Mm. Now, tell me more about these reptile beings.
They're so this planet. It's so it's they're they're kind of the slave reptile types where they're sort of well they're really they're a bit of a pest, I guess. I mean they're an empire and they are going to planets which we have a stake in and they try to also create a stake in those planets and they screw with the people and the animals
Mm.
and things to try to mess up what we're working on. We're working on uplifting these planets very slowly as things like creating new plants and life forms to live on these planets
Mm.
and to eventually become learning places.
Mm.
And they go in and try to screw with them. And to some extent, we must be careful if we wish to allow this or if we wish to intervene because it's not our planet. We're just it's like our sandbox that we're playing with and this bully comes in and kicks down your castle, but
Mm.
it is not necessarily the case that you want to fight him now.
Mm.
Because in this case, the bully is a bit younger than us, and we don't know if it would be good for us to intervene and get that stuck in a conflict.
Mm. No, that's understandable. So, are you deciding what to do with these beings that have arrived?
Yes, we are deciding if we are going to intervene. I would support it under most circumstances because I am very frustrated with the situation because the reptile beings are taking, well, they wish to create slave planets and spread this, and I would not like that to happen. It bothers me greatly. So I am totally okay intervening, but others are not. They're, and I understand that as well. They do not wish to get stuck in a cycle,
Mm.
but I say it's inevitable.
Mm. Do you know why it is that they want to create slave planets?
It's interesting. They are disconnected, and this is a indirect way for them to, hmm, they cannot get power
Mm.
from themselves because they're in disharmony.
Mm.
So because they're in such disharmonic states, will not, they will devolve.
Mm.
And so, in order to stop them from devolving, they must focus on entropic activities
Mm.
as opposed to creative. They're entropic.
Mm. So are they being more like destructor beings rather than creator beings?
They, yeah, they siphon because that's a way to get power. It would be like, yeah, yeah, it would be like, oh, we'll get to this. But exactly.
Hmm. So these beings from these other planets, do you said that they looked similar to you? Is there any
Yes.
differences about them?
No, we're, um, we're a people at this point who can go planet to planet all the time. So it would
Mm,
be to say that they live in England and we live in New Zealand, but look the same and speak the same to a
mm,
great extent. Though we all look unique in some sense, but we we all move about from planet to planet whenever we want.
mm. And so these planets that you move to sometimes, do they have these reptile beings?
No, we don't go to the planets with reptile beings. They're in a different area,
Mm,
and we, for the most part, try to make sure that there's a great deal of space between us and them. They're not a threat. Well, no, they're not exactly a threat. They're a threat in a karmic sense.
mm,
So we just don't really want to get involved with them, but we
mm,
also don't want them to get involved with our projects.
mm. So what sort of decision have you come to in the council?
I we are going to so this planet that we're looking at, it's one of many planets which we are working on, and going to we are going to it, we're not going to stop them directly, but we're going to create a situation where they may seek to attack us.
Mm,
And then if they do that, then we can counter them.
mm,
So this is a way to avoid and getting too caught in the karma because we're allowing them to make the first move in
mm,
that sense.
mm,
This is what we've agreed to. I figure this is silly and we should just stop them, but this is the most appropriate outcome.
mm,
And it's very likely that they will try to counterattack, and then we will do what we will.
mm. So let's speed up time to the day that you decide the council decides to do that. And what is it that they do to provoke
Yes,
them?
they so we send a great deal of people of our people to this planet to go help do our scientific projects, and we have our defensive people with them, and there are many of us, and this the reptilians are then looking at us and are becoming more aggressive because they see that they would say we are claiming their territory, which they have claimed, but are saying no, we're here first. And so in this case, they actually back off
Mm,
and do not go for it. However, very soon afterward, they come back and do it, and then and then we are there again, and we kind of corner their ships, our ships. I'm seeing this from as a report, as a, I'm seeing this as a, like a mind report.
mm,
Um, and then they had, yeah, so they see that we don't have they only see one ship and they fire at it and try to move it. And then here we are with many, many more. And then we actually like surround it with light. We don't try to just blow it up, and we like our ships like pulse like love beam into it, and then but that like it kills like most of them,
Oh, really?
but not all of them. So some of them like are actually like they kind of we sort of wake them up out of their they they sort of feel the light and actually are able to like be healed. Very few,
Mm,
but this is the way we usually will try to deal with these things. If we have enough force that we can just do that. If it's not enough, then we would have to fight. But this is the most appropriate way to deal with an enemy that is much weaker.
mm. So you said love beam. Tell me more about that.
Well, it's essentially the crystal on the ship, and then like it's powered in our planet, and then we release it. So it's very much like a weapon. However, it creates a massive amount of energy infusion into the ship, and that forces the beings to either it will make them feel like they are burning and will make them enraged and frozen, or they will accept it after that, and then it will heal them,
Mm,
and they will then we will then take them to another place who wish to be healed and where they could be recuperated and rehabilitated and then integrated into a part of our society.
mm. Okay, well, that's very interesting. So after they're recuperated into your society, what does that look like?
They have a their own planet or planets
Mm,
of under our sanction,
mm,
which they're part of our you could call confederacy, and they then live in their society there where they heal and they're it's be careful, it's not a prison. That's very important, but it is
mm,
they're watched over to
mm,
ensure that they continue to seek this. But the vast majority are very happy with this change because this is most part reptilian beings and others who were enslaved and did not know it and are very happy to come out of that system.
mm. Yeah, well, that sounds like a good change for them.
Yeah, it's like a jungle planet. It's very soothing and nice.
Mm. So tell me, what other things do you do on your council?
Well, we there's also the general maintenance of the colonies we have. We embark on scientific projects for the most part, looking at creating new plants, and that's a big effort for us. And also even creating materials and technologies, such as the material which allows our cities to float. This is one example of a technology which we work on. So the council doesn't do this, but the council is overseeing these projects and these projects on other planets and trade with other groups because there are also other groups which are aligned, which are benevolent, but not, they're very far away. So
Mm,
we swap technologies with them and various things, even cultural things such as music. We will help create projects for music and bring in foreign music.
mm,
And this is very interesting to us at this point.
mm. So you have a sense of culture, arts and music and whatnot.
Yes. And it's a culture which extends far at this point. It's
Mm,
And we are always trying to gain other cultures. We have a very great interest in cultures of other planets and
mm,
other systems very far away, or and because we wish to incorporate their culture into ours so we could grow. We're very
mm,
much focused on cultural, technological, and scientific, cultural, technological, and I guess it's more, it's not, I would say scientific, but it's, hmm, there's a word. It's not a word which we have. It's like Earth processes, like,
mm,
like, hmm, it's a concept. It's silly that we don't have a word for it, but it's very important, and humans will have to make a word for it.
mm,
But things like creating new plants and healing plants and healing ecosystems and changing things to be more suiting for life.
mm,
It's it's a it's a holistic concept which we have separated into other concepts.
mm. So it's kind of like being a cosmic gardener, is it?
Exactly.
Mm, wonderful. And do you have a sense of like a spirituality on your world?
Yes, we are aware of the light, and we are aware of the what we would call the light is an interesting concept. It's like the unconditional love that pervades the universe.
Mm,
It is something which will accept you no matter what,
mm,
and which is always with you.
mm,
And so this is a simple concept, but it is for us an empowering one.
mm,
And we can see this light in all things.
mm,
We literally physically see it in each other and feel it in each other.
mm,
So it is in the sense that our spirituality is a realization that we are playing a role as a being, but in reality, we are all this ocean
mm,
of consciousness.
mm,
And you could say you're a drop in the ocean and still be the ocean.
mm,
That is that is one aspect of our spirituality. The other, well, and this is not spirituality for us. We are in contact with many higher dimensional beings who will at times, guide us. Though for the most part, they will allow us the freedom to do as we will so that we can learn both from success and from failure.
mm.
Though these
So what
beings are
a
very tangible.
mm. So what are these beings, these higher dimensional beings? How do you interact with them?
In the past, they would come, but this is long in our past.
Mm,
We can, in some societies, not in this colony, there are among us those who can interact with them directly. They oversee us, and we ensure that we'll check in. So our leaders will check in with them. And they're angels, but they're
mm,
seen as these massive glowing forms.
mm,
And like imagine like 1,000 feet tall,
mm,
theoretically, as an analogy
mm,
of like light. It's a spectacular image. And
mm,
it's wow. And okay, so any being can actually talk to them. It's not just
mm,
some, but we have some who are specifically, that's their duty
mm,
to check in. and say, are we going on the right course? And
Mm.
they're very careful. They actually will not say much because they want us to learn.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a game we play
Mm. Yeah. So there's special people in your society that talk to these angels.
in our society. Yes, there are. There
Mm.
are, and again, we all can to some extent, but there are some who are specifically that is their duty.
Mm.
And they're a person who their job is to interact with higher dimensional beings and also like once you get to these higher dimensional beings, there's like beings from like far away places too,
Mm.
like or like foreign, like feel like other universes or I don't know,
Mm.
seeing kind of an imprint of them. So they're like there's people in our society who are like higher dimensional diplomats
Mm.
and make contact and interact with these beings
Okay.
and decide. Sometimes they have to decide if they're someone they want to talk to. Sometimes these are actually negative entities. So we have people who are careful about making sure that that does not that we kind of target we sort of say, oh, this is a don't we don't want to talk to this one, because they'll show up every once in a while too.
Mm. So now let's leave that scene and let's move forward to an important day in that life. A day that you consider to be important when something is happening. We have now moved forward to an important day. What is happening and what do you see?
Thing I have a child, a kid, and
Have you
it's
gone back
important
to
to
being,
me.
hmm, have you gone back to
Yeah,
being a child?
no, I've had a child,
Mm.
so
Okay.
my partner has had a child,
Mm.
and this is exciting because it takes a long time for us. So it takes like it's like I've been alive for a few hundred years, and now I'm gonna be a parent.
Mm.
And so I'm in my house, and it is interesting because it kind of glows
Mm.
and like it's different. It's so different. And as a little kid, and it could do all these things, which I
Mm.
guess is normal, but
Mm.
it can. Well, this kid is interesting.
Mm. What does he look like or what does she look
It's
like?
just I could see the imprint. I think it's a girl. Yeah, it's a girl.
Mm.
I think. So I'm just seeing an imprint of a great ball of light. So my partner and I could see this, and we're like, oh, there's like so being, this kid, we think may be suited to actually become a one of these spiritual diplomat people
Okay.
because they have the impression of the light. And
Mm.
this is interesting, but it is kind of sad because it means they'll have to go to a school on another planet at some
Mm.
point
Mm.
because this is relatively rare.
Mm. So they've come in with an important gift. Tell me more about
Yeah.
that and that process.
Well, we see the light and it's everyone does. So it's like only these people come. It's there's many of them, in the whole confederation, but they're capable of interacting with very high dimensional realms, which if for I interacted with it, I'm on the council, so I'm good at it, but I can't see everything. This kid has the capacity to see realms which I would perceive as just being light, but they can actually see it and interact with it, which is a great gift because that allows them to interact with very high dimensional beings
Mm,
on a very conscious level where they could actually fully grasp the information
mm,
and embody and transfer that information to us.
mm. So,
So
is there a soul from one of those realms?
we assume that's the case. I can see it. There's a library. I guess it's not really a library, but it's an information area in my house. And the kid could just go through it and learn very quick. And it's like, it's really beautiful.
Mm,
But part of me is sad because I know that my kid will not stay with me because they have a greater purpose.
mm,
I will still love this kid and know this kid as they grow up, but they will have to be raised in a school
mm,
that's specially made for this
mm,
because we don't have one on this colony.
mm,
Well, no, we don't. Not this school. There's only one school, or maybe more, but it's a special place
mm,
made for yeah. So it's an honor. It makes me very happy, and I'm a part of the kid's life, and they love
mm,
me. Like,
mm.
it's cool. But yeah.
So, do you have children in the usual sense, or is there a
Mhm.
special way that you have children here?
Yeah, we have it the old-fashioned way. It's quite fun. It takes a long time for us, though.
Oh,
It's
okay.
different in that sense because we only have children very rarely.
Mm,
So the whole experience is a big deal to us because
mm,
we want to increase our chances, so to
mm,
speak.
mm.
Yeah, very
So
interesting.
the child gets birthed in the normal sense too, or do you have special hospitals or caretakers?
Yes, it's extremely easy, and it's there's places there's like a I guess you'd call it a hospital, but it's more like a very, very nice place
Mm,
with running water and streams and I could see my partner is in the water and the
mm,
water's glowing and the baby's gonna come out there. So
mm,
it's a very euphoric experience for her. It's not painful at all.
mm. It
And
sounds
because
very
it's like connecting
beautiful.
with the soul. Yeah, it's
Mm,
really nice.
mm.
Yeah.
And so, do you get to observe that as the father?
hmm
Mm,
hmm Yeah, it's just I mean it's sort of like, oh man, I wish and it's different. It's the opposite. It's like it's you see women as very having this great honor of getting to do that. Um, it's a very joyous, and even I can like the love is in the air, so it sort of explodes, and it's like you could feel it in this room. It's, so I actually can feel the experience actually too, like empathetically through the vibrations in the room that my spouse is giving off. It's interesting.
mm. Sounds wonderful. So, what
Yeah.
else do you do to raise the child?
Well, so it's similar in that the child is with us and we're in a very conscious society, very connected society. So, and it's really easy because you could just calm the child with your mind and help them relax. And I can feel this one's energy is strong.
Mm.
and everyone could see it, but it takes a little bit more work to, um, but it's still doable. But it's interesting. So a lot of it is energetic because we don't speak exactly, so we can create impressions into the baby, and then the baby will reflect impressions to us. And it's it's interesting because that's how we teach is by this impression thing, and that's how we communicate too. It's mostly through these thought impressions,
Mm.
and so I could feel this kid is putting out a lot, and they're very. She's yeah, she's really very bouncy, energetic. Can you just see jumping around these books. And I think this is it's not exactly books, but it's an analogy of this excitement, and I'm helping facilitate the learning.
Mm. So, how do you facilitate the learning for this one?
Mostly figuring out what the kid is interested in, what she
Mm.
wants to know, and then guiding based on what I know for that. So it's a give and take, or it's a reciprocal where the child is leading the learning, and I'm then responding in a way which is like how our society does things. So I mean, this is so it's the kid wants to learn about how we make plants, and so then I teach how we make plants. Simple, actually. It's different. It's not like education,
Mm.
and with the child, it's not. They'll have to go to formal education because I can only teach so much.
Mm. Okay.
But once they're around 5, I mean, it's not 5. It's more like it's actually like 20 years, and then they're like, I don't know. It's a long time. Like slow. It's different. But then the
Mm.
kid's old enough, and then they go to the school where they're trained by masters.
Mm. So now let's leave that scene and let's move forward to an important day, a day that you consider to be important when something is happening. We've now moved forward to an important day in that life. What is happening and what do you see?
So I'm still on the council,
Mm.
and we're just overseeing this conflict. And I don't really care, but I'm just keeping track of it. And so one part of me knows this conflict is escalating,
Mm.
and and I'm going to. So there's another scene, or I think this is the same scene, but I'm
Mm.
on another planet talking to my daughter. She's older now. She's
Mm.
This is the way into the future, and
Mm.
I'm just admiring her. She's beautiful and has these interesting white outfit on. So
Mm.
She's trained, and she's ready to be I guess I'd call it the interdimensional diplomat.
Mm.
It's not that, but I mean that's the best way of saying it.
Mm.
And so I'm just proud as a parent because you see, as a parent, your job is to infuse them with love
Mm.
more than it is to educate them.
Mm.
And I'm proud because I could see that that worked, that I was able to give that kid, give her the love that helped her then become who she is now, which she did. You know, it's like a seed which grows. And And to me, that's so much more important than my this other job as the counsel
Mm,
because that's sort of boring.
mm. So more interesting to be a dad.
Yeah, it is. It's more important. I mean, it's more interesting to have these things, but it's more meaningful because it connects you in.
Mm,
So,
wonderful. So she's finished her schooling, has she?
yeah, she's, um, yeah, very talented,
Mm.
very, yeah,
So tell me more about what happens next.
uh, I see my life goes on.
Mm,
Not be long. As I kind of see our little colony, well, it's not little, but I see it growing.
mm,
And at this point, later, my daughter's off doing her own thing,
mm,
and I don't see her as often as I wish, and that's okay. And I'm still with my partner, but we kind of do our own thing now
mm,
because we've been here for a long time, been together for a long time.
mm,
So, yeah, it's interesting because it's like a long time and things pass, and then we kind of are off doing our own thing, and I'm happy. And I say, well, I think I'm kind of checking in with myself and seeing if I've completed my duties here.
mm, As a soul?
Yeah, as a soul in this life,
Mm,
it's been long and it's been happy, and I, continue to do this council job, and but I could see my partner and I are do our own thing and kind of both ready to move on,
mm,
go home,
mm,
because we know where home is. We could see it. I mean, we can't see it totally, but we could generally see it.
mm, okay.
And it calls.
Does it call for you?
Yeah, it
Mm,
calls in a sense of a very strong feeling of completion and happiness.
mm, wonderful.
And yeah, I could just see one day I just turn into little flake. It's really weird. It's almost like cheesy, but yeah, just kind of turn into dust, and that's actually far further into the future because I see that I'm with my daughter.
Mm,
She's been doing things for so long now,
mm,
and yeah,
So
and you
is that
fly away.
how you end your life?
Mhm,
Mm,
mhm. It's like a ceremony with the whole city,
mm,
and it's almost like a wedding, but I'm in a sense wedding myself back into myself. It's very
mm,
interesting. It's
mm,
very ceremonial and important. It's like the whole city is there to say goodbye.
mm. It's a
And
very
we do this for
interesting.
everyone.
Yeah, that's a very interesting way of looking at it.
Yeah,
You know
it's
what?
very it's a very happy experience.
Mm,
It is in the sense you miss someone, but you kind of can still interact with them for a while.
mm.
So it's just a joyful and yeah,
No,
it's like
whatever
a
happened.
wedding. It's weird.
Yeah. No, that's okay. Whatever happened has already happened, and you're on the other side of it. From that position, you can look back at the entire life and see it from a different perspective. Every life has a lesson and a purpose. As you look at that life, what did you learn from it?
Hmm. It's a happy life.
Mm.
I learned mostly things I already knew, but it was just one of many happy lives, which is good to remember.
Mm,
And I did some important things with trying to circumvent spreading of it's evil, but it's not really evil, more of a spreading of a sort of corruption. I
mm,
was vocal about that, and that was important. And I helped raise this girl who was more important than I was.
mm,
Um, and that was really important to me because that's an honor.
mm,
But it was, for the most part, happy and easy life that was very beautiful.
mm. So, what do you think was the particular mission of that lifetime?
It was to raise the girl, to
Mm,
infuse her with love. It was, and to help encourage some of the learning
mm,
that she needed. That was important. It was more of an honor. It was more of a gift to me than a mission, but it was also a mission in a sense.
mm,
It's interesting.
mm,
And also the council, is that's sort of an ongoing mission.
mm. So, what sort of beings were these beings that you incarnated in? Can you give me more information about those?
They're Lyran beings, so I see them. I mean, this is closer to our time.
Mm,
So this is the Confederation of Planets,
mm,
and there's many segments of that. So there's a confederation within the confederation, you could say.
mm,
Federation within the confederation. And so this is at this point, I don't know if there's a confederation, but this is a federation of our people who are Lyrans from Lyra, people from Lyra, and we have a certain territory of stars,
mm,
which is vast because most of the stars are don't really have life. So it's a big territory that's out there.
mm. And
And
what sort of colonies did you have?
well, there are many. So there were some that were on, most are actually on the surface on the ground. And
Mm,
there's a lot of them are on green planets. Very, there's many planets typically within the similar gravitational range as Earth.
mm,
But there are other situations like on the water planet where the size of the planet is larger. So the density is different, which allows us to create floating cities, which are very
mm,
comfortable.
mm,
So there's many different kinds of our technological progress has allowed us to create colonies on planets which are not totally hospitable, but they are hospitable if you understand what you're doing. And this
mm,
is a big project of us.
mm. So you talked about the before about the those angelic beings coming to you very long ago in the past. From that perspective on the other side, can you see what happened at that time?
So I can see that the angelic beings where prior to this time was a great period of peaceful happiness, which led to progress, you could say, and growth, eventually leading us to a closer point to our own ascension, our next level of ascension. So the angelic beings were starting to press upon us to help us guide into our next phase of evolution.
Mm.
And also, I wasn't involved with this, but they're involved in the Earth Project, which I knew about, but I didn't know much about. But I can see that I know about the Earth Project, and it's some mysterious importance to us.
Mm.
There's because of the energy there, we know that it's in that life I knew about it. Now, from this perspective, I can see that this is the angelic beings are in this role of having us ascend. This is a part of that
Mm. And so, can you tell?
because
Mm.
this Earth project is involved in helping us go through some parts where maybe our some of our souls have missed out on certain wisdom, which we would want to gain to get to the next phase of evolution. So this Earth project is a part of gaining the missing pieces in the puzzle
Mm.
for us.
Mm. So, on that planet, were you aware of the Earth Project at that time?
Yes, it's interesting because on this planet in that life, I the idea of the next phase of evolution was very vague for us.
Mm.
Now I could see it a bit more clearly that our goal, our next goal. Okay, so now today, many of these planets have gone through into another phase of evolution where they're in a very light state
Mm.
and they're like more like glowing, transparent beings who now we see on Earth.
Mm.
So in my life, we were kind of pushing into that, which occurs once the certain level of wisdom is gained
Mm.
and knowledge and understanding.
Mm.
And so it's like we've learned the love principle, and then we learn understanding and knowledge, and wisdom is harder to attain.
Oh,
But
really?
that's sort of the ladder that thing to climb up. And then as they gain understanding and knowledge and love, then that's where their next phase of evolution starts to unfold,
Mm. Is that
which
the
by now has
wisdom?
unfolded.
Mm.
It's pushing into wisdom. It's wisdom is actually attained more from being the super light beings because they're playing a role where they're just giving
Mm.
to the universe
Mm.
because they have that power
Mm.
and that requires a growth in wisdom. Whereas if you're in a role where you're giving and taking, you're like a child learning to some degree
Mm.
because you have to learn the ropes before you could just create. But we're the goal of this society was to become these creator beings, which are just creating and then
Mm.
becoming more wise and yeah.
Mm. And do you think that you achieved that goal?
Our people have by now, the
Mm.
planets have achieved it, but then they're gaining wisdom by interacting with the earth and by sending their people here
Mm.
and souls connected to them.
Mm. Uh,
So today they're playing more of the creator being role, but they're
mm.
still not. It's interesting because they're still in ships. and they have technology, but it's just very high dimensional-ish. I'm just seeing this translucent light stuff. It's interesting.
Mm,
These are things which it's clear, but we lack the words and vocabulary to explain totally.
mm, mm. So are they helping out on Earth right now?
Mhm. They are. They're playing a role. So more of a back role, actually,
Mm,
because they're more of observing
mm,
and sending love, as in like sending love, like um love beams.
mm,
That's something they're doing.
mm,
And then there's the Pleiadians, which are like our younger brother,
mm,
and they're doing more of the dirty work. It's not dirty work, but they're doing more of the hands-on efforts. And but
mm,
we're all part of the same collective. We're all ascending together in a
mm,
sense.
mm. So
But
can you tell me more about the Pleiadians and what they're doing?
they're they're our culture is different history. Our
Mm,
culture evolved more peacefully
mm,
and had a bit more of an easier evolutionary journey following the wars which had happened long, long before. So these wars happened long, long, long before, and they're terrible. And this is part of our memory.
mm,
And then we had risen above that challenge. And the Palladians are a bit more, they have involvement in a different conflict,
mm,
related conflict. So they're more tough.
mm.
And I mean, yeah, they're a little bit more macho guys, but not like humans are exactly like on
Yeah.
Earth. But yeah, like I would say like it's interesting because I'm seeing our energy as being very like pink and purple,
Mm,
and the Palladians I'm seeing more as being a strong blue.
mm.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And what about the human's energy? What does that look like?
It's it's muddled. That's why it's hard to say. It looks there's a strong green,
Okay.
and so it's more of bringing a passion for life, actually, which is
Mm,
interesting because you wouldn't see it now, but Earth humans will, in some sense, be very strong in that life passion and creative energy, which is, I guess you could say, it's not as intellectually oriented,
mm,
but it is extremely potent
mm.
and it's important.
So everyone's different, but everyone's important.
Yeah, well, it's important because as a culture evolves and on certain planets and situations, they'll become entrenched in certain energy signatures.
Mm,
And then if we wish to gain wisdom, we need to gain connections and understanding of other energy signatures
mm,
so that we can gain a more powerful overall signature. This would
mm,
be like two cultures melding who are different and then becoming more altogether, gaining all the permutations and combinations, all the things which could descend from the combination of those two things. In
mm,
this case, there's many more than three, in fact, but there's certain segments.
mm. So does the Lyrans have many, I guess, star seeds at this time that are on Earth participating in this process?
Yes, some of them are inner Earth beings,
Mm,
more of them, because yes, there are on the surface,
mm,
but but it's a little bit harder for Lyran beings to be here because that memory, because of the level of development our culture is at,
mm,
it's it is harder for our souls to integrate into the earth as well. So
mm,
for the most part, we play an observing, loving role
mm,
than the hands-on role.
mm,
Harrison is has more other many other experiences, which has allowed him to overcome that. Though
mm,
he does note this challenge, but it is not only some Lyran beings from this culture, this time would want to come to Earth. Most would not, but
mm,
then play a role supporting the Pleiadians and the other groups,
mm,
which play more of a hands-on role.
mm. So is that why there's a lot more Pleiadian starseeds at this time?
Yes, they have the strength necessary,
Mm,
which the Lyran beings have don't necessarily want to get involved with that unless they have already had those experiences. It's
mm,
because and this has happened to most starseeds, is they come and get stuck in cycles of karma,
mm,
and so it's a risk if you don't have that, if you're not ready for it. And even most Palladian, I mean, most starseeds have face that, and many actually have gotten pulled off course in other lives
mm,
and go through karmic loops. So then other waves come to help bring that about.
mm. Is there any
So there have been star seeds here for a long time,
mm,
but there's a greater wave now more than ever.
mm. Is there any way that looping of karma can be avoided?
In fact, the answer is yes.
Mm,
From our perspective, it's not a bad thing
mm,
because we want to gain that wisdom. So if you do get stuck in a karmic loop, we would see that as beneficial to gain wisdom. But
mm,
that is because for us, 1,000 years is not a long time. So we see this as an inevitability, but we do not send anyone here who cannot handle it.
mm,
So even then, there are some who maybe would get stuck in huge karmic loops and that would be very destructive, and we would never send them. We would only send those who are ready for it to a great extent, at least. They may not
mm,
understand they're ready for it, but
mm,
well, on Earth they would not, but we know they are.
mm, mm.
So,
So has
back to your question, avoiding karma would be um, it's about gaining the experiences on Earth, and if someone could understand the love principle and remember that, and then
mm,
gaining some knowledge and understanding too, that would make it much easier
mm,
to not get distracted by the chaotic energies here.
mm. So would that involve just actually learning the lesson rather than getting distracted by everything that's going on?
Precisely. But it's
Mm,
easier said than done.
mm,
But
mm,
yes,
mm. Well, I think remembering, people have a hard time remembering when they come in.
yes.
Is that
then that's
something, yeah, is that
it.
something that's a part of that experience is the memory
Hmm.
wipe?
Hmm. And it's because of where humans are. Humans have. There's always some degree of memory. So, for example, perfect memory in our culture was only achieved by those who are trained, such as my daughter in that life.
Mm,
And then there's like me in this life who has relatively clear memory of higher dimensions. Humans have on Earth naturally have little to no higher dimensional memory.
mm,
However, that's actually changed a great deal, where there's a much more memory now than people are willing to accept.
mm. And is that going to get better going forward?
It will. It's for people who have memory and can't come to terms with it. It's difficult because they will play out that memory in their life
Mm,
to try to come to terms with it without being able to face it head on.
mm. Is that why practices like quantum healing, hypnosis, and beyond quantum healing, is that why those practices are really important?
Hmm. Yes, it's good to remember because you can see where those influences coming from,
Mm,
and that also helps you in the process of if you say, "Why am I here?" and you can start to see that, then you can look for things in life that would help you gain the wisdom that you are in part here to seek.
mm. And that's wonderful. So I'm just going to ask for Harrison's ego self or conscious mind to just recede with much love and much thanks. And may I ask to speak to Harrison's higher self, please?
I'm here.
Wonderful. So the higher self has been integrated into the body.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So why did Harrison need to see that particular lifetime? What can you tell him about that?
Primarily to uplift him
Mm,
and give him happy memories,
mm,
and also to give him insight into where Earth is heading,
mm. So is it going to become more like that?
in a sense, because it will be rapid. So it's hard to say exactly how.
Mm,
We cannot say exactly how that will unfold, but that will be the vibe, so to speak.
mm. So is his soul a starseed from that collective?
No, his soul's a starseed from the collective above that collective,
Okay.
but
Mm,
I've primarily played a role in this collective.
mm,
Not so I don't know. Harrison's blocking it.
okay.
There,
Well, just
we'll say this to him. There's the creator being. He he is a creator being
mm,
fundamentally,
mm,
and he is has looking to gain wisdom
mm,
and bring that back to his soul family
mm,
who is doing the same.
mm. So is
It's
that
powerful.
why? Hmm. So is that why he's incarnated in this life as Harrison?
It is. He's completing karma
Hmm.
that he hasn't incurred here,
Hmm.
but that's why he's here on Earth to with the process
Hmm.
because the completion of the Earth project is the hmm, major piece in the puzzle.
Hmm.
We won't say final piece, it's a very important piece.
Hmm.
And it's a great opportunity to learn.
Hmm.
He has had many lives here, and many recent lives have been difficult.
Hmm.
So this is sticking with him.
Hmm. Can we release some of the trauma from those at this time? Is that possible to release some of the, I guess, the residue from those to initiate that healing process for him to begin to explore those other lifetimes in sessions like these? Would that be possible
The
to start that now?
yes, these lives, the primary struggle is loneliness.
Mm,
So Harrison has seen some of this lives in the past years, and they're tough because this is when we were first starting to see light back in. So
mm,
it's lonely,
mm,
and he feels this way in this life, even though he's not lonely at all.
mm,
But you tough.
mm. So would that be helpful for him to just bring awareness to that?
Mm-hmm. And to understand that he helped tremendously
Mm,
by walking alone for so long, but that doesn't mean that he needs to continue to have that attitude.
mm. So what was the purpose for Harrison to experience that loneliness? What was he trying to understand?
In this case, it was more to do with bringing the Earth consciousness to where it needed to be
Mm,
out of the Dark Ages.
mm,
And so in this, he was involved with very ugly back then.
mm,
It was tough and it was very cold. Interesting. But it was like being totally not being able to relate to people
mm,
and being very homesick.
mm,
So this is in Spain and also in in France, Norman France, and a few other
mm,
lives, which
mm,
was just lives, small lives, not important, but just playing small roles to help very slowly increase the consciousness to where it had to be.
mm. And so was that the purpose for him to experience that loneliness?
Yeah, well, the loneliness is a side effect. It's
Mm,
just there weren't many beings here at that time, and it was the Inquisition was a terror,
mm,
and the violence was there was no love amongst
mm,
people. There was love amongst peasants, but not amongst people I was with.
mm,
ugly. But
mm,
it was also, in retrospect, there's beauty in seeing how most of those issues have healed.
mm. So does he understand that now? Has he learned all that he needs to know from those?
Yes, they could be explored, but they're not that important.
Mm,
Just the sensation of just walking through lives alone,
mm,
even having people in my life and not being able to relate to them, and
mm,
also the involvement in the what's it, the conquistadors,
mm,
and there's some things that happen. They're not important, and the karma is done.
mm. Oh, that's
But
good.
this was an experience, which
Mm,
was interesting. But again, it's not necessarily important.
mm. So are there any other things that need to be healed and released from these particular experiences?
No,
Okay,
it's
no.
loneliness. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's good to remember the love
Mm,
that is seen in this life we saw today,
mm,
because that is, you could look where you've been or you could look where you're going, and it's
mm,
better to see where you're going now.
mm. And so will that help him seeing that life with his loneliness?
Yes, because seeing the contrast and but also just the acknowledgement that that mission is accomplished and now it's on
Mm,
for the next stuff.
mm. Wonderful. That's great. So we have some questions here that Harrison wanted to ask. Is it okay if we ask these questions?
Yes.
Okay. Harrison was asking of ways to increase visualization and lucid dreaming. What can you tell him about that?
It's practice.
Mm,
Best to meditate or lay down, relax and practice like we're doing now.
mm,
And also seeing very clearly, looking at small objects outside in nature. You could stare at a great flat blade of grass, stare at a rock, and that will actually improve your vision in a, yeah, it will improve your vision.
that why they have those flame meditation practices where you gaze at a candle flame?
Yes, and those are also a hypnosis technique.
Mm,
This would be looking at a rock and examining all the details. So it's more of an observation technique,
mm,
but similar. A
mm,
flame you could look at and see the colors,
mm,
and it would help incite colors and seeing different shades of colors, which is good for visualization techniques.
mm. So would this be beneficial for people who typically can't see very much in sessions like this?
Yeah, to observe their life with their eyes open, especially out
Mm,
in nature. The part of the lack of visual ability in people is to do with staring at artificial visual visuals, which
mm,
play a beneficial role in some sense, but can throw off the natural vision, which comes from
mm,
seeing trees and natural things.
mm. So we have to retrain our eyes.
Yes, because in most lives, you're seeing natural things.
Mm. That's a good point. So he was also wondering what can he do to prepare for the future?
Nothing. You just be happy, and it's good to now to focus on physical health, which he's done well,
Mm,
and mental and spiritual health, growing in those where he lives. There's nothing to be concerned about. Um, things will change, but it will be experienced happily for him.
mm,
While that might not be true for all people, no catastrophic things will
mm.
happen
So he
where
has
he lives.
nothing to worry about.
No, nothing to
Mm,
worry
wonderful.
about. Nobody has anything to worry about. They do. They have things that they could worry about, but it is best to note those things and then continue onward than to
Mm,
stay in the worry,
mm,
which we're saying to Harrison because sometimes he says that other people worry, so therefore he should worry.
mm,
But that he knows that's silly, but it's a subconscious decision which the ego makes.
mm.
And
Was the question to things that people could do to prepare for the future? Is that something that's just like a question that was a worry sort of a question?
it is, but it's also, he asked it also to acknowledge it for other people.
Mm,
And truthfully, the best way to prepare is through physical and mental and spiritual health
mm,
because your body is your home. So if you can make your body clear and good, then it doesn't matter what happens outside.
mm, mm. Yeah,
I mean, it
absolutely.
does, but
Mm,
it's no need to discount the struggle people have. But it is true that your body is your home, so you don't really need to worry about your external home if your internal home is good.
mm. That brings me to the next question about things that you've mentioned before around natural harmony and the Lyrans, how they were in this natural harmony. So, going out of natural harmony, does this affect the body?
Hmm. Yes, so there's the natural harmony, which is not easy to put into words. But in the original Lyran life, this was relatively clear, and it is good for souls to stray from what they know, to experience new things, but they will find inharmonious experiences which will poke them back into the light, so to speak.
Mm,
So we could say for humans now, there's a great deal of inharmony and a great deal of harmony to be experienced on Earth.
mm,
And if the inharmonious experiences are chosen, that will create, that can create certain health issues. That is
mm,
not to say all health issues are related to this, because releasing energy is also a major health change which people are experiencing has nothing to do with inharmony. In fact, as they feel the harmony of the natural rhythm, sometimes that triggers the release of that which is inharmonious.
mm. So, you often said that the reptilians didn't have very much natural harmony. So, can you tell me more about that?
They were they evolved by using heavy technology to live on planets that were somewhat dead,
Mm,
allowing them so that they were not in environments where there was much abundance of life force,
mm,
and they used the technology instead, but it's that connection with the abundant life force,
Mm.
which creates the harmony. This is to say that the planet has abundant life force, and then the person also gives abundant life force, creating a rhythm
Mm.
that cycles this life force around that creates very beneficial to life. So the
Mm.
reptilians did not have this because they sought out planets that were naturally not, they did not give and they did not receive the life
Mm.
force.
Are our circadian rhythms part of that natural harmony?
Yes, it's part of it. It's it's it would be great if people went as who used to do, go to sleep when it was dark and wake up when it was light. That's just not important, but it was beneficial to
Mm.
have that nice rhythm of the day night cycle and getting the sunlight, which is greatly lacking
Mm.
amongst people.
Mm.
Not much sunlight is needed, but most
Mm.
people don't get 20 minutes.
Mm. So, how does this affect the body if you are not in tune with the natural harmony?
It it uh, for many people, they could bring life force and passion through to offset this, but it will slowly gnaw at the body because that connection with the earth is not invigorating the cells
Mm.
and stimulating the cells and as much as it could. So you can imagine when you're outside and in the water and in the sunshine and happy, then you're just giving and taking life force right through, circulating through your cells,
Mm.
which is rejuvenating.
Mm.
And if you're in a very artificial environment, it is possible to bring it forward through you, but it's much more difficult,
Mm.
more an effort from the will to bring life force,
Mm.
which humans are learning to do also. So you can feel that heart in your body, which is part of the earth. Your physical body is also the earth. So it's still there,
Mm.
but it's much better to just go outside and ground.
Mm. So is this why the Lyrans, their bodies were, I guess, superior to ours in that sense?
Yes, they did not know anything but harmony.
Mm.
So this was not even in the first life that was not knowledgeable. In the life we saw today, that was well understood. But we in that we're developing technologies in harmony with the planets, and they were still advanced technologies. The technology does not make things inharmonious, but technology can be used inharmoniously.
Mm. Are we able to connect Harrison in with those DNA memories of his original Lyran crystalline body? Would that be beneficial for him?
Mm-hmm. And this has begun already, but we will just go through and do it again.
Hmm. So how can people get in touch with activating their original, I guess, blueprint crystalline body or their DNA memories from other lifetimes where they might have those things?
People should, if they're able, if they remember an environment such as a beach or a desert or a mountain or jungle, they will, many people will have certain environments they're drawn to. being in those environments will activate those
Mm,
because, so for example, being amongst trees, large trees,
mm,
will help activate the original Lyran blueprint. Being in water activates many other blueprints, which are important,
mm,
and so on and so forth.
mm. So being in those environments will really help to trigger those memories.
Yes, because you're connecting the soul memory directly into the body, so then the body can feel that soul memory more tangibly, and then it
Mm,
integrates.
mm. And is this beneficial for the ascension process?
Necessary.
Mm,
Well, going to all environments and traveling is not necessary, but even just imagining yourself in the environment by closing your eyes is also enough to
mm,
trigger that process.
mm. Yeah, I find that's particularly true for me with the rainforests,
Hmm.
but I can't visit the rainforest very often.
Yeah.
But
But seeing pictures and closing your eyes and feel it.
mm, yeah, and would this help people to integrate those energies and for the ascension process?
Hmm. And it will
Mm,
also help renew the earth because this is going to happen, but just the cycle of the life force also help the plant grow
mm,
and come back to where you remember perhaps how a rainforest looked, where you could feel it in your
mm,
soul. And even if you remember it, even without going, that energy pattern is going into the earth and helping stimulate rainforests here
mm,
and also helping spread love for rainforests and
mm,
jungles.
mm. That sounds wonderful. I think we should do that more often. So there's another question here. Did the Lyrans have a type of energy healing?
They, so in the original or in the life we saw today,
Mm,
um, we will say in the original, they just had physical touch,
mm,
which would be all they needed,
mm,
which was just like giving a hug,
mm,
so to speak. Um, Later on in this life we saw today, it was also quite automatic, but it was a bit more conscious.
mm,
In case that, so someone may have traveled to a different planet where they came into contact and were injured in some manner, but it was very easy to heal most injuries like that
mm,
because you could just place your hand near them or on them and send that life force into them because it was
mm,
such abundant that it was
mm,
easy.
mm. So is that like a Reiki type of a thing?
Hmm. It's essentially physical touch, and physical touch with a conscious effort is very powerful.
Mm. So is that the sort of energy healing that they used?
And they mostly could just use their hands. You could imagine as like on Earth, crystals more more is necessary to do the same level of healing, but that will change to
Mm,
where just the hand is needed.
mm,
And truthfully, for many, just the hand is needed, or
mm,
even just the intention
mm,
to create some healing.
Mm. And so just the intention, and then by using the hands, then that can be possible that that person can receive a healing.
Hmm. Yeah, it's the flowing of the life force. You could imagine circulation of life force from the earth and the atmosphere into the person, and
Mm.
the hand or the focused intent can help drive that healing. So it's not so much that you are doing the healing, more so that you are willing the life force to go into the person. The
Mm.
energy is not coming from you, but you are driving it into them,
Mm.
if that makes sense.
Mm. Okay, that sounds wonderful. So there's the last question is, was, I guess, the Lord of the Rings really based on Lyra or the prehistoric Earth? Because I've had a lot of questions about that recently. So can you tell me more about that?
Yes, it's in a great sense. It is. It's not the same history.
Mm.
So, for example, if someone poking, they could see these lives. At this point, it was more or less a visual perception
Mm.
of experiences and a emotional perception of experiences.
Mm.
And imagine you create a great database and then piece that together to a story.
Mm.
So you can imagine the story is a story. It's made by the story maker, but the impressions, the energetic impressions of the story, the visual details and the emotional details are real experiences.
Mm. Because he even made like an elf sort of language as well. And that actually made me quite emotional when I watched the movie. So is that based in some sort of reality?
It is in the sense that most of the elves, we'll call them, they're truthfully the first humans, depending on how someone considered that. They're they went off and had a language, which then turned into human languages, and Tolkien managed to take a compendium of those languages, which he recognized, and made them a language which was somewhat energetically very similar to the actual language which was used.
Mm.
So the words may be different, but the sounds and the impressions those sounds make are very accurate.
Mm. Mm. I thought that was very interesting when I was watching it. It was very, there was some parts of it where the culture and of the elf people and the language was very, I guess, activating in a sense.
Yes. It is intended to be so,
Mm.
because this is, in fact, some of these stories relate to experiences that occurred on other planets. Most of them do
Mm.
relate to Earth and the inner Earth experiences. Well, this story's outer Earth, but the the intention of these stories came at a time in human history following World War II, where it became necessary to start to trigger the seeds of the ancient history, which extended beyond the written history, which humans know today. because that history will help as more people gain connection to the far ancient history that will heal and help bring back the talents and abilities of that time,
Mm.
which is the next step for the Earth's ascension.
Mm. Wow, that's all very interesting. Is that why Harrison feels drawn to make a book about the inner Earth people at this time?
Yes, it's an exercise which we want him to, for one, to help him remember that and to help share that. This is to say that his story will be his own, but
Mm.
impressions from it will be very triggering to other people as they have been for him. He writes a story and he cries as he's writing his own story. It's a
Mm.
strange experience
Mm.
because it is, to some extent, his own story.
Mm. He said that there was this scene in his story with this tree with these golden apples, is it, or golden fruit? What can you tell him about that?
It's a it's part of the mythological cycle of many cultures in the world.
Mm.
It's a piece of information, a impression, which was an allegory given to people a long time ago. And it's a symbol, the symbol of the giant tree with golden apples is a symbol for Gaia's consciousness,
Mm.
which is used to be a symbol which people had a strong spiritual connection with. So seeing that er, will help trigger that, you could say, primordial religion, which existed around 6 or 7 thousand years ago.
Mm.
It's a earth goddess symbol.
Mm. Will he be ready to know about that? I guess that primordial religion later on, will that be activated for him a bit more?
Yes, it's something which many people have innate knowledge of by efforts to hide it.
Mm.
It was essentially we'll call it a religion based on connecting with the earth
Mm.
and what's called earth magic.
Mm.
But it was actually the way which the human societies which held the light maintained the tradition
Mm.
after the downfall of other cultures.
Mm.
And it morphed into a religion of its own to some degree, and then was suppressed
Mm.
in the last 3,000 years.
Mm. Do you have anything else to say to Harrison or in this session before we pull him out?
No, his book, he should slow down and take time to spend time with it and give it love in a
Mm.
sense, which is editing, but he need not work so hard right now.
Mm. Wonderful. So now I'm just asking the subconscious or the higher self to recede to where it belongs with much love and much thanks.